let's talk some basketball, and let's talk it with Sam Amick of USA Today, former writer at Sports Illustrated. Sam wrote a very interesting article today that I read about the whole Riley Curry, Steph Curry post-game news conference situation. Sam, welcome to the Sports Show with Woody and Les and Benjamin Hochman.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure. Hey, Sam, I want to ask you about that because there are some people who are taking the opposite tack that you are on the Riley Curry, Steph Curry postgame news conference, Woody Paige among them. We know Brian Windhorst, who's going to be on our show a little later, was also vehemently against Riley Curry sitting on Daddy's lap during the news conference. You wrote a great article that I agree with that basically says, what's the big deal? It's entertainment. And she didn't really hamper anything. Expound on that a little bit, will you?
Sure. I mean, listen, like always, to each his own. This is how I see it. My thing is this, guys. You wind up growing so tired of boring press conferences where it's so tough, especially in that format, to get these guys to say anything. That in my experience, the irony here is that if you add a kid to the mix, and certainly one like Riley that's cute, and then also with a guy like Steph, who I thought did a nice job of juggling, I think you wind up with more colorful content, and that was the case during the playoffs last year, and even this year when Tim Duncan would have his kids up there, and he was, compelling and interesting and insightful, which is not things that we typically describe Tim Duncan as. He's usually dry and ready to get out of there. And my bottom line, I guess, and my meat and potatoes of it, is that he went for 9 minutes, and he answered every question. And we talked about Harden and that matchup, and we talked about, what they had to do going forward. So I have had moments in the past where, you see a guy, if it's after a loss, I think that's trickier. If you bring your kid up there and it feels like you just don't want to answer the tough questions, then I'm not on board with that, at all. And I think that's a different situation. So that's just not what I saw here.
Sam, I am.
Sam, I am? You just said Sam, I am.
I didn't think about that, but
Does Papa John's make green eggs?
Who are you, Jesse Jackson?
No, green hams and eggs. Green eggs and ham. Sam, I'll serious up here. I totally disagree with you. I do, and I said it on 2 different shows.
Don't hang up, Sam.
And this one, we're having a honest debate here. This is the 6th example, because I looked it up, the 6th example in playoffs in the NBA of players dragging their kids into what is supposed to be a working atmosphere. I personally don't care, because when I write a column, I'm either on deadline and I can't go to the press conference, or B, and I get the quotes that come out of there. Right. And I guess the quotes that would have come out of there to me would have been, yes, I thought we played well, and come back here. But it's a workplace. And I think that columnists and a lot of writers like you guys, you and Benjamin, go into the locker room and interview guys and look for a different story. So it's not the world end, but it's becoming too common to me. I don't want kids in my press conferences. I don't want kids behind me on airplanes. I don't want kids sitting next to me in movie theaters.
He doesn't want them on his lawn?
I don't want kids. And when I go in a restaurant, I want kids on the other side of the restaurant. They should be not heard. They should not be seen. I don't want to look at the videos of your vacation, of your kids. I want to conduct my business. I don't bring my kid to the game and take her into the locker room and say, "Here, Steph, look at my little daughter. Oh, I'm sorry, she spilled ice cream on you." So that's my. Forgive me, but that's why I disagree with you. You get the last word.
No, I hear you. And to each his own. My only thing, Woody, and I say this with all due respect, there's far fewer people that care about our lives and our families than there are who care about these athletes and who they are. And my experience has been that, and this is the irony here, I think this type of situation opens them up to audiences that barely care about basketball. I get home yesterday during the playoff grind and say hello to the missus, who is not an NBA fan in the slightest bit, and she's talking about Steph Curry's daughter and the NBA, which, I think if you're the league, that's what you're having to weigh. I have talked to the league about it. They're well aware that, like I wrote, there's a threshold here, and they cannot let this go too far. They had no problem with Steph's press conference, but I guarantee you that if, it becomes too common and if it becomes inappropriate with different circumstances, they'll do something about it. But I think, at this point, we're just not there.
Sam Amick of USA Today is our guest. He writes about the NBA, and all of our live guests appear courtesy of Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's.
For all you people who agree with it, what's next? LeBron comes in. This is my cousin Fred. He's going to sit here with me and talk.
You said you were going to let Sam have the last word.
Here's my mom. Mom, sit right here next to me, and she's going to wipe his mouth when he drinks some water.
Very good
And then
point,
the next
Woody.
thing, here's my girlfriend.
Sure.
Now we'll get into Ricky Fowler area where you bring your hot girlfriend in and have her sit next to you.
Yeah.
So
I'm okay with that.
Let's
I was
stop
gonna
that.
say,
Vince, why don't you take it over? That's
fine with me.
Switching gears to actual basketball, Sam, I want to ask you about the Cleveland Cavaliers and notably the former Nuggets. Timofey Mozgov and J.R. Smith are key players for this team in the conference finals. We saw J.R. Smith, who's so flammable. One night he might be on fire. The next night he might
be setting someone on fire.
Exactly, or doing something so dumb that leads to a suspension. What's your take on Mozgov and J.R. Smith and their importance to Cleveland?
They've been huge. I mean, Ben, it's got to be interesting to be in your seat because you obviously covered JR, daily, and what do you do when he was not at his best and when he was just being vintage JR knucklehead who couldn't figure it out. I mean, even when they did that trade for him, I, like a lot of people, jumped on radio shows like this one, podcast, the whole deal, and, basically had a good laugh about the idea that J.R. Smith was the cure to all that ailed the Cavs. It just seemed like it was nonsensical, it was a reach, and obviously I was wrong. He's been great. And the Mozgov thing's been huge, too, and there's, skepticism when that happened, too. They gave up 2 first-round picks. All of a sudden, Tim Connelly looks like, executive of the year, caliber, instead of the guy who's getting his, PR-wise, getting his face kind of jammed against it. But they've been huge, and especially with the injury problems the Cavs have had. They would not be in this position without those guys. I mean, we're talking about, Kevin Love, Kyrie, at different times being on one leg. Without JR and Mozgov, it's a much different story.
Sam, does Houston have a shot against Golden State?
I don't think so. I mean, the other night it was one of those games where you felt like they gave it their best shot. They're up 16. It's just like, man, if you can't finish the deal, when you're playing like that, then I just don't see it happening. Now that being said, I was in Houston for Game 7 against the Clippers, and I can't get that out of my head either, just in terms of that environment, the Toyota Center. It's a tough place for an opponent to come in and win a game. So I don't think this is going to be a sweep. I had predicted Warriors in 6. Maybe it'll be 5, maybe it'll be 6. They've got the firepower, they have the depth. Now the Rockets are dealing with Dwight Howard's knee, which does not seem good. I don't know the latest as of today, but he didn't seem real confident yesterday that he was going to play. And bear in mind, as everybody knows, Houston lost all 4 times against the Warriors in the regular season. Now, granted with different pieces, Dwight didn't play in 2 of those games, but the Warriors just seem to have found their way again. They're playing like that team that won 67 games in the regular season, and that's after a first round that I thought was far more competitive than a sweep would lead you to believe. And then the second round, taking a nice punch in the mouth from the Grizzlies. But right now, it seems like it's kind of, back to that stuff we saw all year long.
Sam, let's turn to the draft. And before I ask a question, I'd like to say I don't really like nerdy kids in glasses and bow ties participating in the NBA lottery, and at least we got away from that this year. So I don't want somebody's daughter sitting on her lap at the draft lottery representing the Denver Nuggets. There's talk that the Minneapolis that the Timberwolves might actually go for Okafor. Do you think that would have an effect that would ripple through the rest of the draft? Do you think that they're just kind of trying to fool us here?
Smokescreen.
Or do you think that's really going to happen? And how do you see the top 4? Because I see Russell and Moutier going back and forth between whether
3 and 4.
Philadelphia's going to take one of them or whether the Knicks will end up with Moutier. So if you could address those 2 questions and the nerdy butterfly bow tie guy.
Well, admittedly, I have not checked in with nearly as many of the nerdy kids with butterfly bows on as I should have at this point. So in terms of the intel with the T-Wolves, I don't have anything great to share. I can just say that from past experience, not breaking any news here, you guys know that right now the draft is the most deceitful part of the NBA calendar when it comes to teams putting out smoke. I mean, I've had sources in the past that are just dead on all the time that all of a sudden they're not afraid to throw you curveballs just because they don't want other teams knowing what they're doing. The Okafor thing, it makes sense that if they're chewing long and hard on Okafor versus Towns, you have different skill sets, different needs, and we'll see where they go from there. The ripple effect will be great, but I think that's why the Lakers are so ecstatic to be there at number 2, because obviously after number 2, especially if you're in the market for a big, then things change for you. I think Moutier, like you said, and Russell are going to be right there. You hear people say that essentially top 8 is where you start feeling like there's a lot of parity between the talent, to that point of the draft, and then it starts falling off. But, we'll see what happens here.
Hey, Sam, really appreciate your time. Besides usatoday.com, where can people find you? What's your Twitter handle?
Twitter is Sam_Amick, A-M-I-C-K. And thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, always appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Sam.
Yeah, next time bring your kid.
FaceTime.
And that segment sponsored by Davidson's Liquors. Fans of this show, the sports show, can get $10 off any online order of $50 or more, so up to 20% at davidsonsdenver.com. All you have to do is use the promo code SPORTSHOW10. It's for online orders only. They will deliver to your house. You can pick up at the store, but you got to do it at davidsonsdenver.com. And again, use the coupon code SPORTSHOW10.